News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Denise Pellegrini. Looks like possible signs of movement in U.S.-India trade talks. The two sides continue to negotiate on trade issues despite strained relations. India's external affairs minister says talks are still continuing, and the statement suggests both nations are trying to find a way out of the stalemate. Just days ahead of the tariffs entering into force, trade talks between the two countries hit a roadblock after several rounds of negotiations over the past few months, with President Trump threatening to double tariffs on Indian exports to 50% by next week. That's a rate far higher than regional peers, and that would be partly to punish New Delhi for its Russian oil purchases. Meantime, President Trump says the U.S. is conducting a major tariff investigation on furniture coming into the U.S., saying this will revitalize domestic furniture makers, and saying furniture coming from other countries into the U.S. will be tariffed at a rate yet to be determined. An official says the probe is being carried out by the Commerce Department as part of its timber and lumber probe under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. Canada confident, meantime, of reaching a trade deal with the U.S. after scrapping most of its retaliatory tariffs yesterday. Dominique LeBlanc is the minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade.
We're optimistic that we can work with President Trump and his administration and come to an agreement that can be beneficial for the economy of both countries.
And LeBlanc there on Bloomberg's Balance of Power. Stocks rose big time yesterday, Dow surging to a record high. That was thanks in part to Fed Chair Jay Powell's signal the Fed might cut interest rates next month.
Overall, while the labor market appears to be in balance, it is a curious kind of balance that results from a marked slowing in both the supply of and demand for workers. This unusual situation suggests that downside risks to employment are rising. And if those risks materialize, they can do so quickly in the form of sharply higher layoffs and rising unemployment.
And Powell speaking at the Fed's annual symposium in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Intel shares gained more than 5% yesterday after President Trump sealed that deal that gives the U.S. government a nearly 10% stake in the chip maker. Bitcoin under pressure today, surged yesterday, though Ether hitting a new record high yesterday. NVIDIA reporting quarterly results this coming Wednesday. New York Times says the CEO, Jensen Huang, plans to ask the Trump administration's permission to sell a more powerful chip to Chinese companies. Another blow to the wind power industry. President Trump halting work on an offshore wind farm off the coast of Rhode Island. Denmark's Ørsted says it's evaluating all options now to resolve the issue, including potential legal proceedings. We're hearing HSBC's Swiss private bank is ending relationships with wealthy Middle Eastern clients, including many with assets exceeding $100 million. That would be to lower, according to sources, the bank's exposure to individuals it deems high risk. The sources say more than 1,000 clients from Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Qatar, and Egypt are being told they can no longer bank with HSBC's Swiss wealth management business. Some headlines related to Jeffrey Epstein. Convicted sex offender Ghislaine Maxwell telling the Justice Department officials that she and the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein had a social relationship with President Trump years ago. But she says she never saw the president behave inappropriately. And she also says Epstein was not blackmailing famous people, and she denies that he kept a client list.
There's no list. There's never been a list.
And you never heard Mr. Epstein talk about such a list?
Never.
The interview with Maxwell took place earlier. It was released yesterday. A boon to President Trump as his administration has been under pressure to release files from federal prosecutors' investigation into the allegations against Epstein. President Trump has acknowledged a friendship with Epstein, but says it ended years ago. 63-year-old Maxwell currently serving a 20-year prison sentence for her role in helping Epstein sexually abuse underage women. In Texas, the state Senate has approved a new state congressional map backed by President Trump. The plan is seen as boosting Republicans' chances of keeping control of the U.S. House in the 2026 midterm elections. Democrats are vowing to battle the new map in court. Texas Governor Greg Abbott expected to sign the measure. President Trump says he's preparing to expand federal deployments of the National Guard beyond Washington, D.C. now.
Chicago will be our next, and then we'll help with New York.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker criticizing the idea. New York City Mayor Eric Adams and Republican mayoral nominee Curtis Sliwa also both opposing the idea. Sliwa says there's no need for the president to take over New York City, although he understands some people do support the National Guard being there. Lyle Menendez denied parole by the same board yesterday that a day earlier rejected his brother Eric's appeal for freedom after serving decades in prison for killing their parents in 1989 at their Beverly Hills mansion. The reason for the denial the same as for the brother: misbehavior behind bars. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Denise Pellegrini. This is Bloomberg.